My name's Deputy Inspector General of Police, Dr. Shehu, PSC. To talk about PRAWA, Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, we have a very, very good rapport, good understanding, and good synergy between the police and PRAWA for many years. It is an institution that concerns primarily on respect of dignity and human rights, which the police are supposed to be part of it. And also capacity building to the police to enable them to perform effectively and efficiently in conjunction with the fundamental respect to the fundamental human rights as enshrined into the Nigerian constitutions of 1999. It's very, very beneficial, and at the same time in building capacity and enabling the police officers to perform credibly when they go out to discharge their duties. The police is an organization that deals with all kinds of human beings. When they come across a police officer, they deserve to be respected by police in ensuring not only their security and safety, but also in respecting their dignity and human rights. So in a nutshell, the training and retraining we are getting from the PRAWA is to enable us have police that will function and discharge their duties in a most standard and acceptable manner by members of the public. At this juncture, I want to say kudos. Welcome to the Nigeria Police Force online training.
Welcome to this particular training, and thank you very much for signing on this module. This module is focusing on police investigations and human rights. So, as you know, this is a very important topic, so I will really want you to pay very close attention to all that we're going to discuss. So what is our lesson objective for this module? It is to create awareness of the human rights standards in relation to conducting police investigations. What of our expected outcome? We expect that at the end of this particular training, you will be able to exhibit greater knowledge in relation to guidelines for good practices as it concerns police investigation. And as I always say, it's not just about the knowledge, it's also about your ability to go in the field, to the field, and then begin to implement what you have learned. Now, as a way of introduction, let me just say that police investigation is an act to determine if a crime has been committed. This is usually a process that is undertaken to determine if a crime has been committed. It also enables us to identify, indeed, who are the perpetrator or the perpetrators, as well as to enable you as the officer, a police officer, to apprehend the perpetrator or perpetrators. And in addition to all that I have said, it also enables you to provide evidence to support the court process and may ensure that the offender is actually taken in and punished for that offense. So the quality of investigation is important, and it is also necessary to achieve a very effective, lawful, and humane policing, meaning that investigation is very key, and we must ensure that we improve the quality of investigation, because it's going to help a lot in your work. Now, it is also important to mention that there is an obvious need that criminality and social disorder should be kept at a very minimal level. And what this is now saying is that, therefore, if people commit offenses, they should be punished for those offenses. And the only way you can do that is to be able to do proper investigation and then have the right persons or the wrong persons that have committed the offenses to actually be prosecuted, okay? Now, on the other hand, there is a need for you to have, take utmost care, you know, in terms of ensuring that you undertake investigation, meaning investigations must be done very carefully, very professionally, and very effectively too, okay? It's been oftentimes argued that there is not enough of investigation done, and that's why some people spend long time in detention, and that is why sometimes we have very delayed process in terms of trial, and that is why sometimes the wrong persons are actually detained. So in dealing with these topics, one of the things that we need to really mention here is that the most basic right that is applicable to investigation of crime is the fact that the right of every suspected person to be presumed innocent until proven otherwise. Unfortunately, it may happen that the police identify a possible suspect and then try to build a case against that particular person instead of investigating all the evidence that they have in relation to that matter. So the good practice would be to really let your decisions be made straight from what you observed in the course of your investigation. A fair investigation process will lay the basics for a fair trial. This presumption of innocence should influence the attitude of police officers in the field. It should influence how you act, okay? Investigation should be competently discharged, should be competently be carried out. It should also be promptly be carried out. It should also be impartially be carried out, okay? Now, what is the purpose of investigation? I'm sure that if I ask you this question, you will clearly know it. You know it. But just for purpose of emphasis, is to say that you investigate because you want to identify who the actual victims are, victim or victims, who the actual suspect or suspects, and indeed who are the witness or witnesses for your case. It's also important for you to undertake investigation because it enables you to actually uncover evidence, for you to get the evidence that you require. It helps you to find out the cause, the modus operandi, the location, the time of crime, as well as also apprehend the perpetrators. I've also mentioned the fact that it helps you to actually verify whether the allegations or suspicions that you have regarding a particular person, in terms of whether he or she committed that offense, is done. The other question I need to ask you is to say, what are the methods and core principles in relation to police investigation? One, to accomplish the aims of investigation, a variety of methods need to be used. Okay, one is about reconstructing the crime. So building it up back and trying to find out, okay, at this stage, so you came into here, you entered this room, and then what happened next? So you just put the setting, you reconstruct the crime. And from there, you're able to connect the dots. The second is that you collect physical evidences, physical information, physical documentation. And then, of course, the third is about interrogating the suspects and the witnesses. This is important. Okay? So the method of detection that you decide to apply must actually be such that also have been permitted by law. So most investigations, will begin by very clear objective observations, very factual observations. Then you move on to the issue about assembling and collating the observation, the facts, the evidence. Then you begin to match them, connect them. Match the observation to the facts, match the evidence to the law, the particular law that you actually proving a particular ingredient that you require for an offense. So for every offense, it is how you understand the elements of that offense, the ingredients of that offense, and then begin to prove this sequentially following your observation. Let's note also some of these other important factors. There's a need to use scientific methods and techniques, okay, in terms of analyzing what you're seeing, either through microscope, through different processes. But it is important to ensure that there are factual ways of assessing, verifiable ways of assessing or collecting information. The other thing is about tools and processes for investigation. So you're looking at phone calls, the email trail, phone trail. When was that phone call made? And then being able to analyze the information you've gotten. You're looking at closed circuit television, TTV, CCTV, and electronic surveillance. You're trying to track what the dress the person was wearing, what happened, what time did it happen. You're also looking at bank trails, for example, and other financial and investigation and analysis. You are looking at fingerprints, you are looking at biodata for other forensic evidence. You are trying to assess, for example, does the blood match to the blood of the victim or suspected victim, or the blood of, or with anything that you saw in that environment that can point that crime to a particular perpetrator. So what are the correct ways of investigating? The police officers are law enforcement officers, we know, and they are really expected to uphold the law. When the police officer breaks the law for the purpose of law enforcement, it's not really a justification. It's like you're subverting the rule of law. Okay? We expect you to observe human rights even as you are carrying out your job. It is therefore imperative for you as police officer to always act lawfully and in ethical manner, even when investigating a crime. Okay? Now, crime scenes should be carefully examined and evidence carefully collected. You heard us the point that we have made regarding this point earlier. So please ensure that that is the case, and whenever you collect information, you then make sure that this information is properly analyzed, properly tagged, and all the rest of them. So adequate care should be taken in the handling of any perishable exhibits in order for them not to lose their relevance. Okay? The issue relating to questioning of suspects requires preparation on the part of the law enforcement agents. You must have a clear picture of the facts that have been established so far, before the time you start the questioning, which you think will help you in determining the order of events as what happened. You also must be clear in terms of the purpose of the interview and what issues and facts you will need to clarify during the interview, as well as how you need to establish new facts in relation to the fact that a crime that has been committed. So if you don't have a good grasp or good understanding of what happened and how it happened, you will do very badly during the interview. So it is encouraged that even before the interview, that you take the much you have noted from the observations you made, from the data you've collected, from whatever, you begin to reconstruct the sequence of that. And then you're able to say the things that have been established, and you're able to see where you have factors or information you have not yet established that you need to clarify. So in your interview, part of what you would do is that part of the thing you already know that you have proved beyond the doubt, you can even test the suspect by raising some of those questions and see whether that suspect would be consistent with the kind of information you already know for sure, or whether there will be something that would give you a red flag in terms of how uncooperative the suspect is, or the fact that the suspect is not telling you the truth. And then those factors that are not yet established, you will find ways to begin to see how you can open to understand more about the crime, and then that will enable you to do your investigation properly. All right. It is prohibited to take undue advantage of any situation in terms of, for example, somebody who is detained for the purpose of compelling them to confess. Don't forget that on no occasion should you torture the person to get information. Remember trial within trial. You do that, what will happen is that you begin to lose the value, because all it will take at the court is the person will say that this information was given by under duress. And that would really be very damaging to your case. No detained person, while being interviewed, should be subjected to any kind of violence, to any kind of threat, to any kind of torture. It may be important for you to find time, go and read Article 1 of the United Nations Convention Against Torture, Cruel, Inhuman, and Degrading Treatment. That will explain to you what exactly constitutes torture. Also, I want to mention that the duration of any interview of a detained or imprisoned person should also be looked at. The intervals between the interview is also important, as well as the identity of the officer who is conducting the interview and the other persons who are present. So you need to record all this. When was the first interview done? When was the second? Who did it? And all the rest of that. That is important to also note. Let's continue to look at other things. Every interview must be clearly recorded. Statement by the suspect that contain a confession of guilt should also be taken down. And I'm sure that now you also understand that there are provisions in the Administration of Criminal Justice Act regarding what procedure you should take, and the fact that a lawyer should be present, and the fact that interviews should be recorded, and then also you can tender this in court. All statements must be signed by the maker and countersigned by the recorder of the interview. Where an interpreter is involved, the illiterate juror must also be duly entered. So please note this, because a lot of cases are being lost on the fact that people come in and say that they gave that information under duress. So every due step must be taken to ensure that if information is actually given freely by the suspect. Let's actually look at the core principles that should underpin any standard investigation. Okay, one is the issue of thoroughness. Investigations must be conducted in a diligent, complete, and focused manner. So you as a police officer, undertaking investigation, you really need to be very thorough. The second principle is confidentiality. The complainants, the witnesses, the informants, and any other person that you are dealing with here, you must understand that they have the right to confidentiality, except in exceptional circumstances. The other issue is around safety. The safety and welfare needs of the victims, the survivors, and the complainants are also very, very important. So please don't forget any of these principles. Okay, I will also talk about some more. I will talk to you about competence. I will talk to you about responsibility and independence of the investigator, and I will also talk about impartiality. First, about competence. You, as an officer conducting investigation, should really possess the required skills and competencies that is necessary to carry out the assignment. On the issue of responsibility and independence of the investigator, the key thing to remind us here is that you as an officer conducting investigation must be prepared to have an independent opinion. You must be prepared to take clear responsibility of everything that you are doing. Do not also forget that this must be reflected in the content of the report that you must also prepare. In other words, all your actions must be fully guided, utilizing the principles that you have learned, as well as the processes that you know that is actually stipulated in law. And you must act independently. What I mean by independently means that you should not be influenced arbitrarily from extraneous factors. So what you are doing must be directly connected to the observations that you have made through the process and the linkages that is necessary to be made. The principle of impartiality, what does it say? Investigation must be conducted in a fair and equitable manner. All investigators must really be free from any influence that may impair their judgment. Please don't forget any of these things that we are going through now. Now, let's talk about the responsibilities of police officers during investigation of a crime. Okay? Police officers are saddled with the responsibility to undertake the following procedures during investigation. The first one I want to mention is about gathering of evidence. When a crime occurs, the officer actually is called to the scene, and at that particular moment, you begin the investigation. You begin to gather information, you begin to gather evidence, and then you begin to look at how this evidence actually be kept, the issues about fingerprints, the issue about blood samples, and all the rest of that. And if there's need to conduct DNA testing, that also gets to be done. So please let us clearly understand the points that have been made, okay, here. So let's begin to look at these things in very, very critical way. Police investigators must make sure that any forensic evidence that requires processing is sent to the forensic laboratory, and that their key information and data that needs to be collected is also collected. But please don't forget to stay in contact with the forensic scientists and technicians. You must do that until the results are available. You must ensure that you get the result timeously to be able to do the needful. The second thing that you are supposed to be doing as a police officer who is investigating crime is about interviewing witnesses, okay? A witness is someone who was at the scene of the crime, someone who saw or who heard or who experienced the incident at the time of its commission. Interviewing someone is a very crucial element of carrying out investigative procedure. Investigators typically begin by interviewing the witnesses who are at the scene of the crime to determine if they saw the crime in progress or can actually provide additional information that may actually lead to the possible suspects. Investigators then speak also to the victim's family, their friends, their co-workers, their neighbors, to uncover information that will be very important to the investigation process. They may also go out door to door into surrounding neighborhood to see if anybody must have observed any suspicious activity or person in the days preceding to that crime or during the crime. That is just any information that can enable them shed more light or understand more about what really had happened. So those are the kind of things that they begin to do, okay? Now, the other third thing that you must see as your responsibility as an officer who is undergoing or who actually carrying out investigation is the issue about record examination. Police investigators can also use records and other stored information to investigate cases. They can, for example, check if a suspect has a prior police record that relates to the current case. They can also look at the records of the car to track suspicious vehicles within the vicinity. They can look at issues of bank details. They can look at something else. They can look at even studying the victim and the suspect's financial records to see whether they can uncover any possible motive. So these are important for us to note that records, and as a matter of fact, your investigation can be very strong, can lead to very strong outcomes and very valid outcomes if you are able to find out that you are able to collaborate sources of evidence that you're collecting. So through the record, they speak to something that supports what the offender or victim tells you. That actually makes the matter very, very easier. Now, what of methods that will help us ensure human rights are respected during investigation? Let's deal with a couple of these ones. The personal awareness and attitude of police officers who are involved in investigation of crime and their individual behavior is really important to safeguard the respect of human rights principles. Now, there are some mechanisms and processes that can be applied to ensure that you as an officer will respect the rights of others and you will protect the rights of these persons even during investigation. Let's look at some of this. The first one I would like to mention here is the need to develop standardized procedure for recording of information during investigation. Clear procedure. It's standardized, you apply it for different offenders in different situations so that it actually will limit arbitrariness. That's exactly what it will do. The second thing I want to mention is that when in doubt about the legality of any investigatory activity, inquiry to your superiors will help. Please do so before you proceed. If you're not sure, clear with your superiors, talk with your superiors, get guidance from them. The third point I want to mention here is that we need to treat all suspects as the law has demanded. What have the law demanded? The law says that they should be presumed innocent because it has not been proven otherwise. So you must act towards them as those who you have understanding or believe that there is a likelihood that they will be innocent. Again, don't forget to be polite to them. Don't forget to be respectful in terms of how you address them. And then you must act very professionally. Now, do keep a very detailed record of the interviews that you conduct. I would recommend that this is actually recorded. And that is, for example, what the Administration of Criminal Justice Act have advised. Enroll in service training and any other training that can help sharpen your investigative skills. And thank you, God, we are doing this particular training. I believe that this can also help to you in that regards. Now, and you can also look at other trainings that will also help you. Now, always advise the victim and witness and the suspect of his or her rights before interviewing. So let them know that they have rights. Let them know that you are not there to violate these rights, but you are there to do what needs to be done to collect the information that you require to collect. The other point I want to state here is that before you proceed in any kind of investigation, it is important to verify certain things. And I explained some of these things. Is the action you are carrying out legal? Will the evidence so collected actually help you in the process, and will the court admit those evidence? Is the evidence you are trying to collect, is it necessary? Is the process that you are utilizing going to bring undue intrusion? You need to look at these things and on the basis of that, be guided. Please note that investigation must be very sensitive and adaptable to the special needs and requirements of both women, children, minors, elderly people, and different groups of persons, including persons with disability. In other words, it must be able to attend to the special needs of vulnerable persons. The other point that you must also think about is that information regarding the rights of persons who are arrested or detained or who are under investigation should be communicated to the detainees. You must communicate their rights to them. You must also make sure that these rights are displayed in very visible ways so that they themselves can also read that. And then in everything you are doing, please ensure that all that is necessary that you've read in terms that are contained in the laws and in the procedures must be followed through by you. Don't forget that as police officers, you are there to promote and protect the citizens' rights. Don't forget that the citizens also have right to counsel, including also during the investigation. Okay? This is important. And I know that this topic is a topic that everyone should really focus on and make sure that you perfect. Because if you get it right in investigation, it makes the process of administration of criminal justice more effective. Thank you very much again for signing in on this course.